Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, here, of course, with the Trashman. Today, we're going to be going over some of our biggest storylines and biggest news, biggest headlines coming out of free agency as it pertains to fantasy football. There's just been a whole rash of stuff going on. Trashman is, in the process right now of updating the dynasty rankings, making sure that all the new teams have been put in. I'm doing the same on the best ball cheat sheet, which version 1.0 did drop over the weekend. It's already up to version 1.1, and now it's going to have to be made to version 1.2 with some new news that came out today affecting the rankings on a couple of guys a little bit farther down the sheet. I'm not sure we're going to get to those, but of course you can find all that stuff with a pro membership over at rosterwatch.com. Trash man, we're back. We're back in the cheat sheet business. We're back in the podcasting business after a break on Thursday. What the hell's going on, brother?
I got nothing good to say.
Yeah, a bunch of the same. You're gonna save all your good takes for some of this stuff. So yeah, we're gonna talk about Roschon Johnson too from Texas. The breakdown we have up on the site for him. Definitely a prospect that people are sort of all over the map on, but somebody that's getting more and more top 100 talk as we get more and more through this process. Before we do that, though, Trash Man, let's just start with you. So I said each of us need to pick 5 things, our 5 biggest storylines each so far from free agency as they pertain to fantasy football. What do you got?
For me, I think the biggest winner to come out of this free agent signing session is the Chicago Bears. I think they did the most to help their team. I think maybe they made the most moves just in general. But I think, just in general, I think the Bears made the biggest move. The DJ Moore, adding him to the team, bringing in a number 1 receiver, Deontay Foreman at the running back position as a replacement for David Montgomery, bringing in tight end Robert Tonyan to boost the tight end position, and running back Travis Homer, in addition to Deontay Foreman. And then
picking up a whole grip of picks.
Yeah,
picking up a grip of picks, man. All right, well, let's go through them one by one then. So Tonyan, I don't care. I don't care about Robert Tonyan. It doesn't matter to me. But what matters to me is the DJ Moore stuff and the David Montgomery stuff. / Deontay Foreman, et cetera, right? So let's just start with DJ Moore. Whenever I look at this and I realize that Justin Fields or the Bears in general, and I think Fields, the Bears, I believe it was certainly last in the league as far as in attempts per game last season, passing attempts per game. It was at the 22.5, last in the league, and they got a little bit more pass heavy towards the end of the season, to where it got up to like 25, something like that, but still bottom 3 in the league. I think Justin Fields was at just over 22 himself. So Justin Fields, we have 22 attempts per game. And now when we think about it for DJ Moore, it wasn't like it was that much better with the quarterback situations he's had recently in Carolina, right? It hadn't been that much better. But
these quarterbacks have been terrible in Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It hasn't been that much better. It's like I said, if you go and you sort by last 3, by last 5, as far as passing attempts, Carolina's right down there in the bottom 3, the bottom 5, right there along with Chicago, right? So it wasn't like DJ Moore, if he was going to leave Carolina, was going to, 8 times out of 10 go to a situation that was noticeably better just from a pure volume standpoint.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he hit one of those 2 times out of 10 where he's not. And it could be considered a downgrade as far as pure volume. My main concern is that you do have Chase Claypool there. You do have Darnell Mooney there. You do have guys like Cole Kmet.
But you have guys who did not assert themselves as number 1 receivers.
But it doesn't matter. But see, that doesn't matter because Terrace Marshall and Laviska Shenault and these dirtballs certainly haven't. That's a better surrounding cast. And just like I said when I went on Pat Fitzmaurice's show last week, when you've got to do projections week to week and you project out, let's say even on the bright side for Justin Fields, You project out 25 attempts per game, right? And you give DJ Moore his usual alpha of target share, right? You give him like 25, 27%, something like that. You're looking at what, 6.5 targets per game. So
I
like,
don't think I think they're gonna up their passing attempts. I mean, it seems like the moves that they're making.
But by how much? Like there've been studies about this, trash man, because every year we try and talk ourselves into these narratives, and I get it. Not everybody can just reinvent themselves on the fly like the Eagles did, right? Like not everybody can just do that. So I think that's going to be a historical outlier. I think even if we're generous, we bump that thing up to even 26, 27 attempts per game, something like that, which would represent like historically a big shift if you have the same quarterback, same play caller coming into a consecutive season, right? That would be a big shift.
Hey, if DJ Moore is getting 8 targets a game, I think he can work with that.
Is that 8 a game? Is that really going to be enough to get you by? Like, we're talking about a guy who could be a wide receiver.
We're talking about a guy who was arguably our consensus number 1 receiver going into his draft. I mean,
well, no, he was he?
He was my number 1 that year. I remember.
I'd have to go back and look and see if he was consensus. Look, DJ Moore. Right now in best ball, where I have DJ Moore. I mean, would you have do you like DJ Moore above guys who you know, or like, can you really have him over guys like Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, this type of player? That's where he's going. I don't feel like that doesn't make much sense to me given the volume projection.
I mean, we don't know what Tampa Bay is going to be like this season.
Well, we don't know what Tampa Bay is going to be like, but we know that Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer. DJ Moore's good, but he's not a Hall of Famer. It's just to me it's, and we kind of know we kind of know a little bit. It wasn't like their offensive coordinator. It wasn't like he was just a complete run first, take Geno Smith out of the whole picture during last year in Seattle. You know, I think that to like right now. All right, so just. If you're in a best ball draft and you're staring down the barrel of like a Christian Kirk versus a DJ Moore, which one of those guys are you taking? After what Christian Kirk was able to do last year, and I know that Calvin Ridley's
going to be added to that.
I know that Calvin Ridley's going to be added. I feel like that probably takes my thought is that takes a little bit more away from Zay Jones with the roles that those guys are going to be playing. Christian Kirk was just a dynamite slot guy. He was a dependable target for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Christian Kirk last year, he was wide. I mean, wasn't he a top 12 wide receiver? Like, hold on, it was like in what was he in half PPR in fantasy points per game? So overall, no, he was a mid-level wide receiver 2 last year, whereas DJ Moore in fantasy points per game was barely a wide receiver 3. He had 9.9 fantasy points per game versus Christian Kirk, who is at 12.3 and half point PPR. To me, it's like his situation got worse. DJ Moore's competition got better. Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool is tougher competition.
The quarterback got better too.
And even Cole Kmet and now Tunyon. There wasn't a tight end of consequence to deal with in Carolina.
To me, I don't think they bring DJ Moore in there unless they plan to implement him as
they will, and it's going to be great for the Bears as a team. It's going to be shitty for fantasy. What about Deontay Foreman? What does this do for the Khalil Herbert hype? Yeah, to me, it puts a damper on it. I move Khalil Herbert down. I basically have Khalil Herbert and Deontay Foreman as similar values. I think they should basically be back to back. I like those guys more than like Brian Robinson, Elijah Mitchell, Zeke, who still doesn't have a job, right? But yeah. I'm not sure that I can like him more than Kareem Hunt, who I guess still doesn't have a job. But AJ Dillon, Antonio Gibson, like Algier. I think I want those guys maybe both over both of those players, over Deontay or Khalil Herbert.
I don't know that I want Gibson over both of those guys.
Why?
Because he's still competing with Brian Robinson.
Well, yeah, but we did talk to sources from Washington at the
who do you think has a better offense? I mean, so think about those two running backs on either side. Do you think the Bears have a better offense at this point, or the Commanders?
Well, do you want a Luke Getsy offense, or do you want an Eric Bieniemy offense? They think that Antonio Gibson will be the single biggest.
Well, are you one of those of the mind that Eric Bieniemy is basically, a puppet in the the OC?
Look, there's a reason he's gotten 12 head coaching interviews and hadn't gotten a head coaching job, right? There's obviously something going on, right? There's something going on there with it. But what is all this? What's his facial tics?
I don't know. Saying it could have something to do with the.
I don't know what that means, but
take a guess.
I will. I have my guesses about a lot of things, Trash Man. I think that definitely that's a stigma that gets stuck with Bieniemy, that he's that's Andy Reid's offense. That's his job with Patrick Mahomes. That's all the rest. I think probably the reason why he's going to Washington is he's saying, I got to get rid of it. So I got to get the stink off me. I'm going to have to go do it somewhere. And if I go do it in Washington, he will get a head coaching job then. All I'm saying is the people who are at Washington Commanders practices, people who know these players, people who are spend their time thinking about this stuff and who work in the actual building say they believe that the biggest beneficiary to all this is going to be Antonio Gibson, especially with J.D. McKissic moving on to other things.
I mean, we talk about Khalil Herbert and how efficient he is as a running back. I mean, when if not now, do we take the plunge on Khalil Herbert?
Look, man, I'm bummed about the Khalil Herbert thing. I had him pegged as my keeper and one of our oldest and most important, certainly not the highest stakes league I play in, but one of the most important that I play against you and Byron and Ketchum and probably the one I want to win the most, the one that's most competitive and at least among friends, right? And in that one, I held Khalil Herbert all year just because I wanted to be able to keep him as a keeper for next year once David Montgomery's gone. I feel like Deontay Foreman, as much as I love him, has ruined a little bit of that because Deontay Foreman he's kind of like Khalil Herbert. They're kind of similar, I mean, both
Foreman's
of them
got some pounds on him.
Both of them are, all right. Deontay has what, 15 pounds on him? Maybe Deontay's got 25 pounds on him. Deontay looks like he's weighing like 235 or so now.
I mean, I think he's closer to Montgomery than he is to Herbert.
Well, but what I mean to say is that we've done the analysis about the usage that Khalil Herbert gets when there's no David Montgomery, and even when there's no David Montgomery, he's only getting 2 targets per game on average. And you heard at the combine, you heard Eberflus say, "Look, everybody knows, we all know that Khalil's got to get better at catching the ball out of the backfield and being an option out of the backfield." So I'm just like, wait, we all know that? I'm like, what do you mean? Do y'all all know that? Is that what y'all are all saying behind the scenes? And that's the same thing that people have said about Deontay, even though I've always felt Deontay, even going back to his time at Texas, he can catch. How can Deontay not catch? Deontay's brother, Armani, was like a high 4-star wide receiver coming out of Bay City or wherever. I forget.
All I'm saying is I don't think the Bears, I think they would have made more or had more concern about David Montgomery leaving if they didn't have it in mind for Khalil Herbert to be their guy and for whoever else they brought in to basically back up Herbert.
They should be more concerned about David Montgomery leaving and putting 17 rushing touchdowns down their throat next year on a division foe. That was one of my that's one of my biggest ones is David Montgomery. And let's just see where he's kind of where I have him slotted right now. David Montgomery going to the Detroit Lions. I mean, to me, he needs to be drafted at the same time as DeAndre Swift at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's.
I think to just read out my last point. I just feel like they wouldn't have let Montgomery walk if they didn't plan on having Herbert be their guy and then have somebody come in and bolster that backfield.
Yeah, and it's only a 1-year deal for Deontay, right? So and Deontay's been healthy, but everybody knows that he's got the Achilles and all the rest of the stuff like that. I feel like this is going to be. Look. If Khalil Herbert's going to get there, trash man, DJ Moore's not getting there, because if he's going to get there, he's going to need to get 16 touches per game and a 60-40 touch split. And if we get 16 a game and a 60-40 touch split, then we're looking at 30 rushes per game, 28 to 30 rushes per game, and that's automatically going to mean that the pass attempts just aren't going to make the jump that you're hoping for. Those pass attempts could jump 25%, and you're still not going to be what you're hoping for. So it's going to be one or the other, trash man. You can't have both.
I'm going to have my cake and eat it too.
What about David Montgomery? Is he going to outscore DeAndre Swift next year?
Probably.
Doesn't that just suck?
For who?
For Swift. And look, we've been down on Swift in Dynasty compared to the rest.
At this point, Montgomery becomes the better value and higher priority.
Well, we can't do like that on the cheat sheet because that'll totally break ADP. But I mean, we've gotten pretty close. And honestly, man, if I'm staring down the barrel of that decision, I just thinking about the culture of that organization, thinking about the fact that David Montgomery actually does have some ability to create on his own, maybe more than Jamal Williams did.
If you think David Montgomery's a better running back than Jamal Williams, and Jamal Williams was the touchdown leader last season, then you have to think. I mean, you have to think big about David Montgomery.
But we can't just say that David Montgomery is going to lead the league in touchdowns or be anywhere. He's not going to get 17 touchdowns. That's just a complete.
And we never would have said that about Jamal Williams this past season. If we had, we would have been way ahead of the curve.
Well, we were ahead of the curve on Jamal Williams because we had the DeAndre Swift fade on, and it's just like that was the way it was. It was good. It was good for us. But to say we had to say we thought 17 touchdowns, that would be disingenuous. It's just it's such an outlier. Those kinds of seasons just don't happen. You know what I'm saying? I realize the offense is good. Double-digit touchdowns for David Montgomery and have it be more efficient between the 20s than Jamal Williams was. That to me is awesome. That's like in a dome, on a great offense, on a defense that's probably was getting better to end last season, but still pretty bad, right? To me it makes plenty of sense to have him sort of in this tier with other guys that are he needs to be ahead of guys like, at this point, David Montgomery needs to be ahead of dudes like these sort of betting on the come stuff with Rachaad White, right? He needs to be ahead of him. He needs to be ahead of Cam Akers. He needs to be ahead of Isaiah Pacheco and James Cook. My question for you is, what about Miles Sanders now that he is a Carolina Panther? And if you don't consider Dalvin Cook, who teams have been kind of going after this whole time and acting like they're sort of waiting to see what sort of shoe is going to drop with Dalvin, to me, it kind of seems now like he's not going to go anywhere if there hasn't been any movement, right? It's like Michael Lombardi says, if you haven't heard anything by now about the money that you want, there's not a market for you at what you're hoping to get. We saw it just happen with Dalton Schultz, right? Yeah. He wanted to hold out for a multi-year deal and stuff. He's got to go to Houston for 1 year and make up to $9 million, I think it was, for a year. When reports were that he wanted 3 for like 33.
Yeah,
like no one's gonna do that. What do you think of? I kind of think Schultz is a guy that I moved up today. Just by the way, this wasn't a big one for me, but Brandon Cooks gets shipped out to Dallas. I mean, all they got down there is dusty old Robert Woods, Nico Collins, and John Mechie, who we still can't get a real good
Noah
update.
Brown.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, doesn't Dalton Schultz become super appealing now that Jordan Akins is gone? Jordan Akins goes to Cleveland. I saw that OJ Howard went to the Raiders. That's a pretty open depth chart.
It all depends on who their quarterback's going to be.
Well, it's going to be it's going to be probably now that it's looking like all the reports now are coming out saying that Bryce Young is going to be the number 1 pick for the Panthers.
Really?
Yeah. Even though all the sportsbook have CJ Stroud I saw him at just over the weekend at -300 to go at number 1. But I heard on the GM Shuffle podcast, Lombardi said he thought it was 60-40 that it was going to be Bryce Young. Now, in the latest mock draft from, I forget if it was McShay or Kuiper put out today, had Bryce Young number 1. Then Daniel Jeremiah in his most recent had Bryce Young number 1. Feels like that drumbeat's starting to pick up a little bit. The Panthers are sending basically every member of their damn staff and their mom and their dog and everybody else to every one of these pro days. We have a whole rash of these pro days coming up this week, at least with Young, Stroud, and Levis. So yeah, think of it, dude. I think of it as Bryce. I think if it's any of these good rookie these rookie quarterbacks are good. And don't you always say that a veteran tight end is that like it's his safety blanket? It's his best friend. I love that for Dalton Schultz. I moved him up, especially in best ball, where it's, I've been hoping to get a lot of Darren Waller, with all this, but it seems like people are sort of picking up on the Darren Waller stuff, even though we got ahead of ADP on him.
Yeah, I mean, normally I do say that it is a safety blanket, but it kind of depends too on how bad the Texans' offensive line is, and is this tight end mainly going to be called to block?
But see, I don't think you bring in Dalton Schultz for that, right?
I mean,
he's a good blocker, but he's like
theoretically, no.
He's a good enough blocker, but you've watched him. You're a huge Cowboys homer. You're just tilted that he's gone. He's a good player. He's good in the receiving game. He's going to be good for the Texans. So just what about Miles Sanders though? Because it does feel like he got the biggest deal. He got the best deal, and he's going to be there for a couple of years. How old is Miles Sanders? Sanders is he turning 26 this year? Yeah, he's turning 26 this year, born in 1997. So, is this an upgrade for him? Going back with his old running backs coach, Juice Staley?
I think it might be more of the same for Sanders.
Do you think he's not that good?
I mean, he hasn't shown himself to be very terribly consistent. He had a better season this year. And I don't think his offense is going to be as good. Definitely not.
Well, you don't think? He's going to be all they have, dude. And traded away everybody else.
And that's not always a good thing.
Yeah. That's true. It's not always a good thing when you're the absolute focal point. And that's something that also, but just another it's not really free agency. It's more of a trade. But what did you think about your Cowboys trading for Brandon Cooks?
I thought it was fine. I mean, I think it definitely helps to fill a need.
I think it's great. I think it's good for Cooks. I think it's good for the Cowboys. And to your point about Miles Sanders, I kind of think it's good for CeeDee Lamb. They need somebody that can open that up. They need somebody who can open that thing up, dude. Yeah. It's not Michael Gallup. It's not Noah Brown. It's not any of these dirt balls. It's like Brandon Cooks is a legit talented player.
I mean, do you think he's far and way above someone like a T.Y. Hilton?
Oh, at this point in his career, yes. Oh, yes. That T.Y. Hilton
30.
That T.Y. Hilton stuff was such a stunt. Just a stunt. He was done. Brandon Cooks wasn't done. He was so good last year. He's telling the Texans, he's like, look, get me off this team, dude. I'm still good. I'm still he's still an alpha, man. He's still good. Brandon Cooks is a good player. He's still good. I mean, is this the end for him? Probably pretty close to it. They'll probably have a year or two of good play with the Cowboys. Some team will sign him to some dinky little 1-year contract, and he'll fade off into whatever he does next. But I like it, and I don't think it hurts CeeDee Lamb like some people are. They say, "Oh, you got to move down CeeDee Lamb."
No, I don't. I definitely don't think it hurts him.
Any what else you got? I mean, staying on the Cowboys.
Aaron Rodgers to the Jets.
Well, that's a trade, but it's still one of these movements of the new league year. Clearly, it's one of the biggest deals.
I mean, yeah, if we're talking about biggest deals, I think that may be the biggest one. As far as how much it changes the complexion of an offense.
No, it's just like overnight, right? It's just everything. You bump up all these guys. We talked about it before. Just how much can you bump up Garrett Wilson from his current ADP, though?
Well, the thing is, I think Aaron Rodgers changes everything, but I think Allen Lazard coming in you have to temper expectations for Garrett Wilson then.
So you really think that you can move? So Aaron Rodgers comes to town, and just because of Allen Lazard, 4 years, $44 million, you're gonna say that this actually that whole package actually hurts Garrett Wilson. I can't.
I'm not saying it hurts him. I'm just saying I don't know if it. I mean, I don't know if it's like if there's like a sea change for Wilson because of
it's a sea change. It's Aaron Rodgers throwing to Garrett Wilson. I mean, at some point the cream rises to the top, and you know what I mean. At some point, the cream rises.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I mean, like, why else would Aaron Rodgers kind of demand to have a piece like Lazard add to that offense?
Because he wants fucking Randall Cobb added to the Packers. He wants his demands. He wanted to bring damn Mercedes Lewis. Are you worried about that for Tyler Conklin?
I mean, he didn't bring him in.
Well, at some point, Trashman, you got to realize the talent of these players.
A good receiver. I mean,
you got to realize the talent. We're talking about Allen Lazard and Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. Allen Lazard, the playoffs.
He's not chopped liver.
He's chopped liver. He's this is
compared to they give him a 4-year deal. I just don't feel like
they said they were going to do it anyway, even without Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like what?
I just don't think they make a move like that unless they plan on having as an integral part of that offense.
I mean, I'm not buying into any of it. I do think that it does make for an interesting stacking discussion.
I mean, you can make a best ball lineup out of that whole offense.
Look, how long do we need to even? We're talking about this like it's all. I mean, there's no chance that this doesn't happen, right?
What?
Rodgers. I mean, just with the ongoing negotiations, like there isn't a chance that there isn't any. Right?
I mean, Rodgers himself has stated that that's where he plans on playing.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if it's like, what do you think there's anything that they're? Let's see. What Peter King was saying is the fairest deal. This was yesterday. I thought it was interesting. He said the Jets trade a second rounder this year and a conditional pick at 2025 based on whether he plays football there in 2024. So basically he's saying that he totally sees Green Bay's point about playing hardball for Rodgers, but he's talking about maybe people are talking about the 13th pick for a guy who might play 1 year. He's just saying that ain't gonna get it done. I don't know. It feels like
the Jets are gonna go all in. They feel like they can win a Super Bowl if Rodgers comes in there.
And if they don't, they're on the hook for $44 million to shitty Allen Lazard for no reason. All right. Anything else that you wanted to hit on just out of free agency?
I mean, I feel like a kind of a dark horse here is as the Taylor Heineke to Atlanta. I feel like at some point he could be the starter for the Falcons this season.
Ugh.
Things just go from bad to worse. Careers, he's probably
on the Falcons and with this show and with this
better
analysis.
Than Desmond Ridder. I think best ball. If you're making a bet, if you wanted like a dark horse best ball lineup,
don't listen to this. Please don't.
You get like a Taylor Heineke.
He's not even on the best ball cheat sheet. Do I need to add him on?
I'm just saying, if you want to make a stack that, if it hits is going to win you some money, I think Taylor Heineke is the key to that.
Taylor Heineke to Mac Hollins. All right. Let's talk Roschon Johnson. University of Texas running back Roschon Johnson. He just had his pro day. He had his pro day last week, and he did not elect to do so. He couldn't do bench because of the Senior Bowl. He broke his hand, and so he's still recovering from that. So no bench, but also surprisingly, man, no 3-cone, no short shuttle, no nothing except on-field workouts. He stood on his 4.48 40 time from the combine, weighing in a little bit less.
I thought it was 4.58.
I'm sorry. What did I say?
4.48.
Well, I think that's a big difference. Isn't it, Trash Man? I think that's a big difference.
I'd say.
So yeah, thanks for correcting me there. His 4.58 at the combine, standing on that, and it's probably about as fast as he's gonna. He's about 6 feet tall, 6 foot and 1/2 inch tall.
He plays pretty slow.
225 at the Senior Bowl, but he did slim down 10 pounds to run at the combine to get that 4.58. With that being said, he certainly does have speed. We've talked about it a ton of times here before, but Texas has the truck stick measurement they get using the catapult technology in their shoulder pads during practice. And Roschon, and the way that they do it is they multiply top speed by miles per hour, and they multiply that by the player's weight. And Roschon Johnson had the highest truck stick on the whole Texas football team last year. So it's kind of just like a way to say size adjusted speed, but it was better for him than it was even for Bijan Robinson last year. Of course, being on the same team as Bijan Robinson is going to be trouble for anybody, right? It's gonna be tough. You're not gonna see the field much, but whenever he did see the field, Roschon Johnson was always very good. He's considered sort of the, I feel like I've talked about him so much, but if we talk about Bijan being the heart of the Texas football team or the face of the Texas football team, Roschon was definitely the heart of it. He was a team captain. He was the guy who Steve Sarkisian called his lieutenant in the locker room. He's smart as hell. He's got a business management degree and some kind of hard minor from the Red McComb School of Business at the University of Texas. He's academic honor roll. He's going to be 22 this next year, so still pretty young, a former high school quarterback. And some of the things, if you compare him to Bijan Robinson, like his 10-yard split at the combine, like Bijan ran the 4.46, Roschon ran the 4.58, but his 10-yard split, it was a 1.52. That was third best among running backs. It was basically even with Bijan Robinson.
See, I think
he gets up to speed
that
quick.
Roschon runs faster than he plays.
Yeah,
considerably so.
The other thing about him too is that his if by PFF, just his absurd yards after contact per rush was 4.28 yards after contact per rush. It's better than Bijan Robinson's 4.17.
Well, yeah, I mean
which is an excellent rate. Like one of the things you say about Bijan is like he's so good at just slugging through the trash. The thing that's different about Bijan when he slugs through the trash is he slugs through it, and then he gets back. He hits the afterburners, and 70 yards later, you can kiss him goodnight. Roschon's not that same guy, but he will rumble ahead for 8 more yards for you, fall forward. Has that kind of efficiency. I'll just also say he's an ex-quarterback, probably the best pass protecting running back in this class. He sees the field like a quarterback, as you said in the report. I think that's exactly right. He feels those pressures like a quarterback, and he's just a guy. He's a guy who's good with the football in his hands. He can catch,
one reported fumble,
8% target share. He's an all around damn good football player. He's a guy who I consider the basic lock to be a top 5 running back in this rookie class, despite the fact that the production just simply won't be there if you're just looking at it through that lens. How did you see Roschon whenever you did?
Yeah, he's just a really good all around football player. I mean, really, anywhere they put him on the field, which is a lot of places actually. He played out wide some.
Wildcat quarterback stuff.
Yeah, special teams. Yeah. He's safe with the ball. Like you said, 1 recorded fumble. And how many touches was it?
It's almost 500, I think.
448 touches. Yeah. 448 career touches, 1 recorded fumble.
Not a lot of wear on the tires. 448 touches in his career at Texas. Like, that's not a lot of wear.
That's not a lot of wear, but I do feel like because of the way he runs, he does absorb a lot of damage. And I think that may be something.
What do you mean? Just because he kind of runs tall, like he runs upright, presents a lot of surface area.
He uses a lot of that surface area. He absorbs a lot of contact. So I mean, I guess he hasn't shown to be worse for the wear for it, but I think maybe that could, if there is a concern for a team, maybe that's one.
I'm reminded though, just like the thing that maybe somebody wouldn't really notice it about Roschon until you saw, like, for us, going to practices and seeing him in games and stuff, like, we know, but he really is a well put together 225 pounds at the Senior Bowl. I mean, have you ever seen a 225 pound guy look like as svelte and kind of sleek as he looks? He looks like he's an athlete, dude. He looks really, he holds that weight really, really well.
Is he a bit? Could he be a bit of a tiptoe burglar?
Brandon Jacobs, get the hell out of here with that. Do you know what? We could end it on the tiptoe burglar bit, but listen, whenever I look at him, I like Cody's comp. Cody calls him a Sean Alexander. Cody Carpentier calls him a Sean Alexander. To me, I've always thought he had a little bit of sort of like a Jordan Howard sort of streak to him. I think that's a good kind of size, style comp. Maybe a guy whose lateral agility could be a small bit lacking, but still has good feet, good vision, and whenever he does plant his foot and get upfield, it might not be one of these things like Bijan Robinson where it's just all of a sudden he's creating a whole new play on his own and you don't know what the hell he's doing, but he just gets up to speed so fast. Here's the thing about Roschon, dude. He gets down to business, and he gets down to business quick. And that's sort of acceleration reminding me a little bit about Jordan Howard was when he was coming out. Who did you have for your comp?
I said Jeff Wilson.
What is it about Jeff Wilson that you like?
I mean, I just think they're both all around good running backs who can do what you ask of them and are consistent. I think consistency is kind of, the calling card for both of them.
Do you think fans should be happy if their favorite NFL team takes Roschon Johnson and just say day 2 of the 2023 NFL draft?
I think so. I'd love to see him as a Cowboy.